What's going on, y'all? Forrest here. Just wanted to intro this video by saying this is the first of many more in-person interviews we have, but that being said, the first interview, I had some technical difficulties with the mics. We had to use the camera audio for Evan's interview, so it's not the best, and I'm not proud of that. So I want this stuff to be high quality for y'all. Forgive me, and we'll get it better on the next one. Until then, y'all enjoy this interview. Here's one of the best drummers we got in town, Mr. Evan Hutchings.
Let's stay in touch. Didn't believe her till she was hopping in my truck, yeah. Coming back to my place for one more last time, late night replay of those things we did when we were in love. Now it's just let's stay in touch, yeah. Let's stay in touch. I don't know how long this thing will keep going on, but I'm gonna let it play out for a minute.
Well, dude, how long have you been, I guess, would you consider yourself a professional in Nashville playing on sessions weekly? That's your full-time gig?
It started, I would say around like 2010, 2011. And, like right around there, it started to pick up more. I was touring before that. And then I just decided to not tour as much and just try to be around and available for sessions. And the more you meet people, the more you're available and around, the busier you get if people like you, So
Who did you tour with, and what was that like?
I was touring with this guy named Griffin House around 2009, singer-songwriter, doing clubs. I didn't really do much country touring, and toured with just some independent artists. This indie band that I was in for a while, Pico vs. Island Trees. Those guys are awesome.
Okay.
They're all in LA now. But yeah, Tyler James and like Trent Dabbs, Amy Stroop. A lot of this kind of like singer-songwriter, indie, folk, Americana world. That was what I was in for a while, and then started to play on more like country stuff, country demos, records. That stuff just kind of picked up and got super busy with it, and I love it. So much fun.
So did you grow up listening to country and like listen to that kind of...
Not really.
What kind of drummers inspired you musically growing up?
I was big into, which I didn't realize it, because I grew up in like Christian music. My dad's a pastor of a church, so that's how I grew up playing drums, is like just listening to Christian radio, which that would have been like Chris McHugh and like some Chad Cromwell stuff, Scott Williamson, Dan Needham, like these guys, phenomenal drummers that are still crushing it today. But them, and then also like Matt Chamberlain and Jim Keltner, and a lot of like LA type session guys, Steve Jordan, huge influence, Levon Helm. A lot of those guys, I would just like read the backs of like liner notes and credits and be like, who are these guys? Their name keeps popping up, So I would research them and check out all the records they were on. And that's when I was like, okay, I wanted to do that. I don't know how to do that, because this wasn't around then,
Sure.
But I'm like, all right, what do they do? What kind of drums are they buying? Like, what does it seem like they're using, and why? What are they doing in the studio? So then I would just be in my bedroom with like a 4-channel Tascam tape deck recorder thing and try to like get the same sounds that I would hear on records, and it wouldn't even be close. Right. And I'm like, well, why is it, like, okay, I've got a mic on this. Why doesn't it sound good? It's like, oh, wait, you got to EQ. You got to tune it different. You have to, like, maybe compress it a little bit. I was in my bedroom. It wasn't soundproofed at all. And I started to learn that kind of stuff over time. And then out of college, I got, like a Digi 002 4-channel guy. Started to learn Pro Tools. Got this guy. Just saved up money from touring. Bought that, and like, over time, piecing it together. And the more you do it, the better you get at it. It just takes reps. It takes like just doing it thousands of hours.
And I feel like it's so interesting how much it increases your value as a session musician to be able to record yourself at home. You don't need an engineer. You don't have to go to a studio. You can have clients out at your house. You have so many kits you can choose from, and you get sounds quick and easily. You're able to edit, send it out, and to make my job easier just by dropping them in a Pro Tools session. I don't have to hire for editing. I don't have to do anything else but come out here and leave with either file on my hard drive or a Dropbox. And that makes a difference. Did you know when you started learning this stuff that you would incorporate it into your day-to-day business? Was that the plan all along?
I think initially I was into it just trying to be creative, you know, and because I was so far away whenever I first got into just learning how to record myself, I wasn't even close to being able to like charge people for it yet, or like not very much. But the more I did it, the better I got, the more established you get. Yeah, I mean, it definitely is a great avenue to make money, to make, you know, it's a financial thing, it's a business, you know, so like you want to buy gear that's not like, so I don't have like 16 channels of Neve 1073s, like you don't have to spend a ton of money to get great sounds.
Yep.
Obviously it's not cheap, like none of this stuff is cheap, but it's good, you know, like even like this EQ would be like $1,000 or something. That's not cheap, obviously.
Right.
But you could also get a plugin that does the same thing and like a couple plugins, so you don't have to spend all that kind of money. But you can get stuff that's not crazy expensive and still get great sounds. You just have to have a good source, like good sounding drums, someone that can hit the drums the right way, and then just get like a good level. And you can do a lot without having to spend a ton of money.
And people would ask, like, okay, well, if you can achieve that with a plugin, why would you buy the hardware gear? And I feel like whenever you're a professional in a business, you're reinvesting back in your business. Even though you're just a drummer, every time you buy a plugin or buy Pro Tools, that's a write-off, and you're reinvesting back into your own creativity and up in your own value. So that's why, you know, you can justify spending $1,000 for an EQ because you're making a living doing this, and that's why there's no problem preferring the analog over the digital, even though they are close.
Yeah, they're super close, and I've A/B'd them. The hardware versions do sound better. I mean, it's so minute.
Right.
But whenever I'm sending files to somebody, I want them to be able to just open it up, no plugins on it, and it sounds great. You know, and I want to be able to rival studios that somebody would spend a lot of money to go to. That's like, I want them to be able to get that good of a quality of drum sounds here as they would at like Ocean Way or Blackbird or whatever, you know. And I feel like people do, you know.
Yep.
It's definitely like on par with that because I just know this room so well. I can get any kind of drum sound we want. And, but yeah, like, so I could just use plugins. But before Pro Tools 12, you couldn't commit, right, and just like print all the plugins. So it would take me like, if I used plugins and I didn't know if whoever I was sending the files to didn't have the plugins I had, then I would have to like print everything and like take extra time. And I'm like, man, I'll just buy the real deal.
Yep.
You know, it sounds good. So
And go straight in.
yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah, so you grew up playing in a church. Did you grow up in playing any bands outside of church, or like what was your like musical journey before you went to Nashville?
Yeah, so grew up sort of like learning how to play drums in church, starting bands with my sister and cousins, just jamming after church. I think our first band was called 24/7, which is horrible. That's a horrible band name. Doing like talent shows. And then, yeah, just starting bands in high school. I had another band with some friends, another band moved to Nashville with, toured around the country when we were in high school. We would just like strap a trailer on the back of my Ford Explorer and book gigs via MySpace, you know, and figure out where we had family around the country and just stay there at their house for free. And just made it work because we wanted to get out there and be, you know, rock stars and stuff. And so learning how to tour like that at such a young age was really helpful for me whenever I moved to Nashville. Learning how to be a touring musician and not try like give people space and not be annoying and like just take care of your own stuff, you know. Don't be an idiot, be on time, that kind of stuff. It sounds super basic, but whenever you're in like the middle of Idaho, and you don't know where you are, and you're like, how do I figure this out, or I miss home, or whatever. You can get tested, emotionally, and so you kind of try to know what not to do, I guess, is helpful. But yeah, started bands early on, moved to Nashville, went to MTSU, and studied drums there, and minored in recording engineering. Learned a little bit through that. The most I've ever learned was just doing it by myself in my bedroom.
And YouTube.
Yeah, YouTube. Like literally, you can learn so much just by trial and error, not being intimidated by not knowing what it is. Just like, you know what, I'm just going to try it. I'm going to go for it. And if I fail, so what? I'm trying stuff, And that's how you learn new stuff, is by failing, really.
Well, dude, I'm sure there's, 12-year-old kid in small town Arkansas that wants to be a drummer, maybe professional in LA, New York, Nashville. What would be your advice to them as far as what's important at that stage of learning to prepare yourself to do what you're doing now?
Yeah, so biggest thing I would tell anybody who wants to be a professional musician, especially a studio musician, learn how to play to a metronome, learn how to play to a click track at literally every tempo, every kind of feel. Listen to all genres of music. You're ultimately going to come back to the stuff you like, and that's going to sculpt your sound. And don't be afraid of having your own sound. If you do something that's different from other people, that could be a huge asset to you in your career, because if you sounded like everybody else, then they might as well just hire somebody else, right? So don't be afraid to have an identity. Learn to play with a metronome. Learn how to play at consistent volumes. Like, you want to hit the snare drum the same level for the most part, like in a chorus. Like, if you look at the transients in Pro Tools here, most of the time, or the goal at least, is to have the snare drum have like the same velocity on a rock song like that. Learn how to do that. Learn how to hit the drums in the same place every time and get a good sound. Learn how to tune drums, like any way possible. All that kind of stuff. It's just like, explore the sounds that you can get out of everything you've got. Even if you only have one snare drum, try to make it sound like that's 10 snare drums in one.
We were talking about earlier at the Sound Emporium that sometimes people make it feel important that you need to know how to learn how to read traditional music, right, to be a session musician. What is your opinion on that? And do you have any experience with that? Or are you just kind of ear trained? Or how do you go about it?
Yeah, so that's how I grew up, is learning, I thought if you wanted to be a session musician, you got to learn how to sight read music, like notation, which couldn't be any further from the truth. That's how it used to be back in the 60s, 70s, 80s, I guess. But not anymore. You just get a Nashville number chart. And there are definitely sessions in town where people need to sight read, but you find that more in choral music and jazz music, things like that. And I can do it. I went to school, learned how to do it because I thought, okay, if I want to be a session guy, I read an article that said, all right, you need to learn how to be able to sight read anything. And so I learned how to do that. I never use it, but I have before, and it's a good asset. But yeah, you don't have to do that. Just have a good ear. Just know how to play songs. Learn songs.
In your opinion, does somebody have to go to traditional, reputable school to degree in music to do what you're doing?
No, definitely not. Most of the people that I work with didn't even go to college, which is crazy to think about. Some guys did, and they didn't finish. Some guys didn't even go at all, and you just learn by experience and making beyond six figures, doing well. No college education. It's all about relationships, who you know, being a good person, being great at what you do. And it's amazing. People will keep calling you if they just want to be around you. Some of that is that, But yeah, you don't have to go to a super expensive music school to have a career in music. For some people, they need that. Like for me, it helped me to kind of kick me into an extra gear of because I was from a small town in Arkansas and didn't have as many resources as are available now. I guess you can now, like with YouTube and stuff, you can kind of like learn anything.
Yeah.
Really, I mean.
Yeah.
It didn't used to be the case, so you had to go to where it was. So I came to Nashville, which there's a little bit of that I wish was still around, the mystery of that, because it forces you out of your comfort zone if you can just find anything. But also at the same time, it's amazing. Like, dude, I learn stuff. I'm on YouTube constantly just trying to learn new stuff, production techniques, whatever. It's awesome, man. So yeah. Some 12-year-old kid, if they're thinking about should I go to school for music or not, I would say go to school for a business degree.
There you go.
Learn that.
There you go.
And then practice just as hard in music as you are studying your business. And
That's great advice.
Yeah. That would help you.
That's not belittling the music degree, but
Definitely
you
not.
you
Not
just
at all.
heard it from a professional that, the amount of time that you spend, the money you spend getting this degree, how much of that are you truly applying on the day-to-day session life versus things that can be learned through YouTube, through just grinding it out, through woodshedding, through being in the industry with friends that are taking you out on the road, that are inviting you to sessions. That's the best way to learn.
100%, yeah. Yeah, I met a guy named Will Sales, right out of high school. He's a drummer here in Nashville, amazing drummer, and saw him at a show. Went up, met him, got his email, said, "Hey man, I'm thinking about moving to Nashville. Can I just bug you with some questions?" And he was super nice and helpful. Just find a mentor like that if you're young, and don't be afraid to ask your parents, "Hey, can we just go to Nashville for a weekend?" And reach out to somebody, reach out to me, reach out to anybody, and maybe you can come to a session and just see what it's like, and that's how you learn.
That's it.
So I never learned any of that stuff when I was in school. But also, most of the time when you're going to school, you're not there's no degree in studio musician. I guess maybe there is at some schools, but it's not, you go there for me, I think you go to school for other things. If you wanted to teach, if you wanted to be a classical performer, or if you want to do that. If you're wanting to play country music, go to Nashville. Yeah, I was fortunate to kind of get in with some guys early on and stay busy, and it's been great. I've been so fortunate to be able to pay my bills just doing music for quite a while. And I'm just constantly reinvesting in the whole thing, and I love it.
Well, as you know, it goes without saying, you're the exception to the rule. There's tons of drummers around the world that would love to make a living waking up and messing with drum tones, messing with guitar pedals and running their, we're living the dream here. And I feel like it's a crazy thing and that's part of Nashville, is to be with like-minded people that you can be creative with, be able to pack up everything, leave your family, and come to Nashville to grow your craft.
Yeah.
How important is that to you? Do you feel like for a musician to challenge themselves to grow in that way?
100%. It's very important. It's so rare that somebody would come from a non-major music market, and blow up and be successful as a sideman.
Yeah.
Happens to artists all the time, for sure. But even that's pretty rare, So to me, it's if you were going to be in fashion, then you would move to a city where there is fashion, the fashion industry, like New York, LA, Dallas, whatever. You go there. You don't stay in Fort Smith, Arkansas,
Mm-hmm.
And so if you really feel strongly about it, don't be afraid to take the leap and get out there and go do it. And you might fail, and that's okay, but keep trying. It's the people that can take failure the longest, those are the people that are successful. Because if you feel like anybody owes you anything just because you worked a little bit, then you won't be around for very long. So you have to be okay with failing, or getting fired from a gig, or somebody saying, "You sound awful, I don't want to hire you." So you go, okay, what do I need to change and fix, and what do I need to work on? Then you go do it, and you get better, and that's how you do it in any business, especially if you're self-employed, because nobody's gonna just hand it to you.
Of course.
As we both know.
Of course.
And that's what makes it so rewarding. It's like, man, this is awesome. I'm getting to do this, what I love, and I'm having a blast doing it. I mean, that's literally living the dream.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely. Awesome. And from the church to the road, now to the studio, now to the home studio. Yeah. Where do you see your career going in 5 years? What do you want to be doing? What right now is your dream to reach that next level?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I'm kind of doing that. It's just staying more consistent with what I'm doing, playing on #1 records. It's like every other couple weeks, it feels like there's a song that I'm on that's a #1 on the radio, which is amazing. Just keeping that up. Yeah,
for the people listening, just go ahead and give me a list real quick of current songs that are out right now that you're a part of.
Yeah, so like Luke Bryan, One Margarita, that's me. Justin Moore, That's Why We Drink, which I think is like 16 right now. I think Luke Bryan somewhere like top 10. Matt Stell, his latest single, his last single that went #1, I was on all of his stuff. Jimmy Allen, all of his stuff. Actually, that Luke Bryan, his last single, which was What She Wants Tonight, went #1, played on that. So it's been awesome, man. It's been really cool to be able to, see like, oh wow, I'm on a #1 song. It's crazy.
Have you been like picking up stakes at Kroger? Heard your drums coming over?
Yeah. And I'm like I was at Golf Galaxy the other day checking out putters.
Yeah.
And a song came on that I played, and I was just talking to the guy. He's like, "So what do you do for work?" I'm like, "Well, I'm a drummer here," and I'm like, "Actually, that's me playing drums on the song." It's like, "No way, that's amazing." Yeah. So anyway, it's funny when that happens. But
yeah.
That's the goal, like that's what you want to do.
And your folks call you super proud when they hear a song that you're a part of.
Yeah, totally. They love it, man.
That's
awesome.
That's one of the biggest things too. Whenever you first start hitting a lick and your folks call you from back home, little town. Mine's little town Louisiana. Yours little town Arkansas. But when they hear their boy on the airwaves, it changes the whole meaning of everything.
I know.
Calling super excited.
Yeah, it's fun. I love it. It's great. We're fortunate. We're the lucky ones, but we also put in a lot of work.
Yep.
It's like hard work and preparation and luck, and then But whenever it's your time to shine or whatever, whenever it's your moment, you have to be prepared for it. You have to put in the hours and hours and hours of work. I mean, God bless my parents and my sisters for putting up with me playing drums all the time at our house growing up.
Yep.
Because it had to have been super annoying, but I'm glad they did.
Yeah.
I'm thankful.
Yeah. So, what do you feel like is most important whenever you make the move to Nashville? Did you were you pursuing gigs on Broadway? Were you trying to go through online to get gigs? What advice would you give somebody if they were rolling into here to get started?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I moved here and was going to school for the first 2 years that I was here. So a lot of my time was spent focusing on just practicing and really like honing in the craft. Took some drum lessons here from some people, and like just would go to shows and be like, oh, okay, that's the level of expectation. I need to get better, So just lived in a practice room for like a couple years and devoured every kind of music, pushed myself, recorded myself at that same time, tried to be consistent, like you're trying to do all these things. Had a mentor, this guy, Will Sales. I don't even know if he would, he probably wouldn't say he was my mentor, but to me he was. And I just picked his brain a lot. He let me come to sessions and hang out. And I could see, like, okay, this is how people talk on sessions, because there's a different kind of speak of like, hey, can you punch me in at bar 2 of the down chorus? And some people are like, what are you talking about? My parents would come to a session and hear us talking about all this stuff, and they had no idea what we're talking about. But to me, it's just like this language that you start to speak to an engineer or to a producer or to whoever, that just kind of soaking that in the back of the room. Also, like, not being annoying and not asking like too many questions when I'm in that scenario, because you don't want to be that guy that people are like, who is this kid? Get him out of here. You know, don't bring him back, please.
Yep.
You want to be cool. Just be cool, hang, be a good person. Don't be overbearing, and don't expect anything from anybody. That's like huge advice from me. And when it's your turn, just crush it. Don't be too... Everybody's insecure about their craft sometimes because it's so personal to us. But it's like you got to be able to kind of set that aside for a second and just have fun, you know? Because that'll come across whenever you're performing. And especially, I would say, for drummers, when you're on a session, because it can be terrifying when you're like the youngest guy in the room and you're playing with legends that, you know, you grew up listening to. As a drummer, you've got to lead the band. You have to, like, hold it down, and you're like, if you're timid at all, you can hear it in the music, you know?
That's right.
It's crazy. You can actually hear it. And so that's something I had to learn kind of early on, where it's like, all right, you're here for a reason, now crush it. Go do your thing, you know? And it's like, okay, cool. And that's something that I talk to other peers of mine that's something that's like sort of to keep reminding yourself, like, hey man, you're okay, like, because we can be kind of neurotic sometimes of like overthinking things because we're like constantly like you may be reading the room or trying to pick up on what's going on. That's another thing. Being a session musician, you have to be good at like kind of reading the room and knowing when not to say something, maybe knowing when to speak up, knowing kind of like, all right, this guy's going to take it. I'm not going to overstep anything. I'm just going to like, this is my role today. You know, like knowing how to read the room. If you can tell maybe an artist isn't digging something, then you may go, hey, what are you thinking about this? What are you feeling? And then they'll say, I don't know. I don't think oh, okay, cool. Let's go do something. Let's try something else. That's huge. You know, stuff like that.
Knowing when to switch it up. Knowing when to read the vibe of a room.
Yeah, knowing how to do that. Just be aware. Be emotionally aware of the room. And that's important. But anyway, I mean, I feel like this is a lot of stuff.
No.
Well, hopefully it's not like...
That's good. We'll edit it. No. This is what we'll edit it up. This is great. I'll try to close it out right now. Really good stuff. Well, dude, thanks so much for having us out to your place, inviting us to your session at Sound Emporium earlier today. I've learned so much today, and I know that our viewers have learned a lot just by watching your craft. Appreciate you giving us the time and sharing your talents with us today, dude.
Yes, thank you so much for having me.
I left this interview pretty much unedited. There was so much good stuff in here. I'm so appreciative for Evan being the first guy to let me come in behind the scenes and get a real look on what session drummers are doing to be future-proof in learning how to record. Literally the track that he's playing on is something that I've produced with an artist, Lucas Hogue. The drum tones on this track are just phenomenal, and I don't feel like we would have achieved a better tones paying for a studio downtown. So that's one of the reasons I enjoy working with Evan and wanted to have him on the playbook, because not only is he a great session musician, he is versatile by learning how to engineer and craft his sound straight from his home studio. So hope you guys enjoyed that. These things are only going to get better. Stay in touch for more. See y'all soon.